to show you how I made this card using a stencil from Hero Arts for the Stay Crafty with a blog named Hero challenge. Now the card that I have on that challenge actually uses these 4 colours. So that is Lemon Drop, Creamsicle, Taffy and the Berry Smoothie colour. Sorry, the Grape Slush colour. But I decided to change up the colours. So I thought I would go with Taffy, Berry Smoothie, Grape Slush and Blue Hawaii for the card today, because I thought I'd remake it to make this video, and I always like to change up something when I make a card twice, if I have to make it twice. So today I am using the Star Branches stencil from Hero Arts, and what I'm doing is I'm just applying these inks directly to the stencil. I've put a craft mat, a non-stick craft mat underneath my stencil, but very little of the ink actually got through onto that craft sheet. And I'm just pouncing the ink down because I wanted to get plenty of ink onto this stencil. I'm overlapping the colours just a tiny little bit. I don't want to overlap them too much because I don't want to contaminate my ink pads too much. But yeah, I managed to overlap them and get a really good blend. But the other way I'm getting a really good blend is by spraying this stencil with water. So before I add the stencil to my watercolour paper, and the watercolour paper that I'm using today is Canson Montval cold press watercolour paper. I'm going to spray it with this just water sprayer. This is just tap water, straight from the tap, nothing special. And once I've sprayed it, I'm just going to lay it flat onto my piece of watercolour paper. I'm just pressing it down gently to start with, and then I'm just going to put a piece of scrap paper on top and just rub so I get really good contact across the whole stencil and piece of cardstock. Now, I didn't get good contact across the entire thing, but that's okay because that was the look I was going for. I didn't want it to look absolutely perfect. I wanted it to look a little bit rustic. So especially in the area with the pink colour at the bottom, it was just a little bit patchy, but that's okay. But there was so much ink left on my stencil that I decided to do the whole process again. So I just sprayed the stencil again with some water, didn't reapply any ink, just used what ink was already there. Added it to my watercolor paper and pressed down again. And this time I got a slightly different look because as you'll see when I lift it up, there's a lot more pink and a lot less of the blue color. But I will still use it. I'll put it in my stash of unfinished objects and use it at a later date. All right, so now I'm just going to pull out my heat tool and just dry it off because this is quite wet. There was a lot of water that I sprayed it onto the stencil, so I need to make sure it's nice and dry before I move on. All right, so I'm using this Big Hugs stamp and cut set, and I'm going to be using the Big Hugs die for this particular card. Now I've cut my watercolor panel in half, so I can actually get 2 cards out of this particular panel. I'm only going to show you one of them today, but if you're either at my blog or on my YouTube channel right now, you'll be able to see the other card that I made with the other colours on my blog, so you can always go and check that out, and the link is in the description below. While you're having a look at the description below, I'd love it if you clicked on the subscribe button and clicked on the bell for notifications so that you don't miss any more videos of mine. Okay, so I've got my card base here. It's just top folding piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock. I've put the coloured panel right in the middle, going from top to bottom, and I'm putting these black glitter cardstock pieces straight in the middle. But I decided that there wasn't enough contrast. I really like sentiments that are very, very clearly legible. It's a big thing I have. So I always want there to be a lot of contrast between the stencil, the background and the sentiment that I add. So I decided to do 2 things. I wanted to add some dimension behind this sentiment, and just adding dimension adds a little bit of contrast. But you can see that when I'm gluing the black glitter onto the white cardstock behind, I'm gluing it with a little bit of an offset. So I've got kind of like a white drop shadow behind the letters, and that will give plenty of contrast to my sentiment. Now on the card with the orange and the yellow, I didn't do that because I felt that there was enough contrast between the black glitter cardstock and the background. With this one, the colours are a lot darker on the panel, so I needed that little bit of extra contrast. All right, so I'm just using my craft mat, the grid lines on my craft mat, to line it up so that that panel is dead centre, and I'm just making sure the sentiment looks right there. And I'm going to use my glue. So this is Hero Arts Precision Glue that I'm going to use on the back of this sentiment, just to glue it down so it's not going to go anywhere. All right, so it's always important to make sure that the letters have not sort of moved against each other. So some die cuts, the letters might be thin, or yeah, they have a little bit of movement, so it's always good to be very careful when you line up letters of a word, because especially with a sentiment like this, where the letters are sort of big block letters, you need to really make sure that they're nice and straight. So I always take a little bit of time to do that. All right, so I finished off with a few little black gemstones and I was done. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you back again next time. Bye.